I received a story a few days ago. This gentleman came across my channel and wanted to share his story. He told me his wife was doing frequent girls' nights. He also indicated if someone is having issues in their relationship, please don't resort to violence. His so-called solution cost him his freedom. First, let me say that my story took place in early 2010. I worked for a large retail store and my wife worked for a medical billing company. We were married for about 4 years and had a son together. I was just 26 at the time, my wife was 24. For the most part, our relationship was good. We didn't argue that much. I would say we had issues like any other couple, and we didn't have issues in the bedroom. Our son was born shortly after we were married in 2006 and life was good. However, as time went on, there were little things that started to add up and our relationship began to suffer. We talked about it, but it seemed like it didn't help much. One of the issues was she was using our smartphone a lot more, and she seemed to be a tad bit protective of her phone. Right around the same time, she started developing friendships with a few other ladies at her job. I didn't have a problem with that. I thought it was healthy that she developed some friendships with her coworkers. Fast forward a few weeks. My wife calls me from work one day and said she was going out with the girls after work. She told me where they were going to be and told me what time she would be home, etc. I was like, cool, have fun. I love you and I will see you later. She got home about 11:30. That night, I was already in bed when she came home. We had fun that night and I felt it was okay letting her blow off some steam and have fun with her coworkers. So as time went on, these girls' nights became a lot more frequent. I didn't mind because it wasn't like she was doing it every day, but it was happening at least twice a week. But to my surprise, she was coming home at a decent time, always before midnight. So I started to think that she was just going out with her friends. So I let it go. But I soon found out that wasn't the case. One day while working late, I get a call from one of my wife's friends telling me she was out with her and some of the other coworkers. She said my wife wasn't feeling well. So I called our babysitter and told her I would be a little late coming to get our son. I went to pick her up from this bar, and when I got there, I could tell something was wrong. She was very disheveled and smelled of alcohol. I mean, she was lit like a Christmas tree. Well, I went to the babysitter, picked up my son and went home. The next morning I confronted my wife about her getting drunk like that and I was angry. We got into a huge argument and things got heated quickly and we got into each other's faces. That's when I decided to take a walk and cool down. I just needed to get out of the house for a bit. But when I got home, it only made things worse. My wife had called the police and told them I was being violent with her and our son. So the cops came and questioned me. I was honest with them. I told them a friend of hers called me the night before and said my wife wasn't feeling well. I went to pick her up and brought her home and we got into an argument because she was drunk. I wasn't violent. You can check her for bruises. Fortunately, after talking to the cops, they did not arrest me. But my relationship with my wife started to tank and fast, so over the next few days, my wife wasn't talking to me. She would interact with our son, but not me. I didn't get mad. I just kept myself busy with other things. Our bedroom life suffered as well. I mean, we stopped cuddling and all that stuff. It felt like she was distancing herself from me after everything that transpired. But this is when I started to fall apart mentally. I mean, I just couldn't understand why she was pulling away from me like this. So as time went on, her attitude toward me didn't change. So one day I just flat out asked her what's wrong. What are we doing? She tells me that she was still kind of angry with me from the argument we had about getting drunk. I said, you called the cops on me and lied. She said, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to protect myself and our son. That's why I called them. I said, "Okay, I get it, but we still need to work this out." I told her I couldn't believe she would not communicate and let this fester. We agreed that counseling may help. So we did some research and found a great therapist who could help us both. So that's when things started to turn around for us. We eventually worked through the issues and learned how to communicate better with each other. We also had some tough conversations about her going out with her friends so often and drinking to the point of almost blacking out. But unfortunately, marriage counseling didn't last long. We had a big argument and we went back to the same old thing. Her not communicating with me. It seemed every time she acted this way, the angrier I got. One day I was at work and I get a text message from my wife saying she was going out after work, and that was it. She didn't tell me where she was going to be like she normally did. I didn't respond to the text. I called my babysitter and asked her if she could keep our son for the night. And I told her I would pay her extra at about midnight. My wife hasn't come home or said anything. So I get in my car and go up to the bar. She usually hangs out. I didn't see her car. Thank God, but I just had a feeling she was there. So I go in and sure enough there she is, drunk out of her mind again. I drag her home again and she is mad, cursing me out, saying take me back, just nonsense, while I am driving home. I noticed she was on her phone texting someone. I asked her who is she talking to. Then she says, "Why am I being so controlling?" After that, I didn't say any more. I was done the next morning. I get up and go to work. I know my son is still at the babysitter's. So I left my wife a note that our son is still with the babysitter. She needs to have someone take her to get her car and go get our son at about 2 p.m. I get a call from the babysitter and our son is still there. I told my boss I had an emergency at home. I drove to the babysitter to get our son. Then I drove home and lo and behold, my wife isn't home. Now, I am confused. So I call her job, but she wasn't there. I call one of her friends and they don't know where she is either, and she wasn't answering her phone. 4 p.m. rolls around and she comes strolling in. She wasn't drunk, but her attire told me something was going on. I asked her where she was and she tells me she was out with a friend. I repeat, a friend. She says, yes, a friend. All I'm going to say is that night my life changed. Later. That night, I went to bed early. I put my son to bed and my wife was on the couch watching TV. At about 1 in the morning I woke up and my wife wasn't in bed. I go into the living room but she wasn't there either. I call my babysitter and tell her what was going on. She is surprised, but she said to go ahead and bring him over. I take my son to the babysitter and I drove straight to the bar, but I didn't park my car at the bar. I parked down the street a little and walked up to the bar, and right away I noticed my wife outside the bar kissing a man. I snapped. I walked up while they were embracing and kissing and just stared at them. Both the guy she was kissing turned around and started cursing at me. I pointed a gun at him and he ran. My wife just stood there in a daze. So did I, but I never lowered my weapon. I shot her. I just wounded her. People were screaming and running and I walked away. I walked back to my vehicle and waited for the cops. They came and arrested me. I lost my family and I lost my freedom for 7 years after I got out of prison. I got back on my feet and I have almost rebuilt my life. I chose the wrong path to try and solve my problem. Don't ever resort to violence. I got out of prison in 2016 and got some time reduced for good behavior. Even with a crime of passion with no criminal record, you are going to do some time. So think about that before you think violence is your answer. I want to thank Tony for his time. His channel is quickly becoming one of the